Hi guys, I'm Wayne. In this video, we're going to have a chat about the Tyranid Killteam that I'm painting while we're painting it. Let's crack on. Before we get into it, this is probably going to be a little bit of a longer video. I know this style of content isn't for everybody. A lot of you seem to like it, so this will be the last one in getting this Killteam ready for the tabletop and getting some gaming in. Now, if you want to just jump straight to the end and see what they look like, I will put a chapter at the bottom. Feel free to jump the next 15 minutes or so. Right, ready to crack on then. I was really surprised the last one of these videos went really well, seemingly. I got quite a bit of interaction from folks, so you did seem to enjoy it, which I wasn't expecting, so that's good because I enjoyed making this sort of video. It's a little bit different from the stuff I've done in the past, and it's a nice little refresher, isn't it? A bit of a cleanse between painting projects, I suppose, and that's what this is. It's a bit of a cleanse for me. So when I get these, what have we got? We've got some termagants. I don't know which gaunts they are. Some Gene Stealers, and a couple of Tyranid warriors, and a 3D printed Carnifex that I know I can't use in the game, but I love the sculpt. It was so much better than the Games Workshop one, and I just really wanted to paint it, and that's kind of what caused this kill team to kind of happen in the first place. So these are all, I think these are all older miniatures, to be honest, so you can pick them up anywhere, super cheap now. Since the launch of Leviathan, it's been, well, NIDs are everywhere, aren't they, let's be honest. So it seemed like a really good opportunity to have a bit of a palette cleanse, do something a little bit different before I jump in onto my second Age of Sigmar army, my Slaves to Darkness. And when I looked at the rules for these in Killteam, I was super excited. They got some really interesting mechanics, and that's just compelling to me. I know they're not particularly competitive, but well, neither am I. Certainly not in Killteam. And it's been really fun to experiment on doing some different techniques. So if you watched the last video, we kind of put them together and talked about how we were going to paint these up. And the Hivefleet that these are from, in my canon, in my head canon, and the lore of the world that I'm playing in, this is Hivefleet Metallicus. So, as you might have guessed from the name, one of the future in here, I forgot to say, if you like this video, if you like this style of content, don't forget to comment, like, and if you've not already, subscribe. I do appreciate it. I'd love to get to 1,000 followers and unlock that sweet metric inside YouTube. If you do already follow me and you do subscribe and you have commented, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy authentic hobby content. I'm really enjoying making it again. Cheers. The big elements to these guys is they've got a metallic-like carapace. Now, this is not something that we don't not see in nature. There are a couple of species of beetle that actually have metal components in their chichen? Is it called chichen? I think it is. So it's not too far out of the realms of reality, but you know, it's something that I've not seen too many people do, and I love me some weathering effect. So we painted the carapace black, hit it with a quick dry brush of some metallic, here with some Dirty Downs rust, came back with a little bit more metallic, and then just brought up the edges a little bit. I didn't go for the standard kind of lined motif on the shell that a lot of folk do with NIDs. I mean, I could have done. I did actually consider doing that at the metallic stage before I put the weathering on there with the rust and the verdigris. But I thought, well, you know what? It's going to take a little bit too much time to do that, and this is supposed to be a nice, quick project between larger, more involved pieces that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on. So I wanted something that was going to be like fairly low impact, that would let me get my kill team ready for the board and just to have a play with them. So the entire point of this one is just well, to do what hobby should be and have some fun with it. It's taken me a little bit longer than I thought, but sometimes life gets in the way, doesn't it? So overall, I think we've put maybe what, 6 hours into these, something like that. It's been super simple. I mean, the majority of it has been just slapping on colour, really. There's been no complicated techniques. So let's have a quick revisit of what I've done, and we can take it from there. We can have another chat, and then we can have a look at the finished product on this. So in the first instance, I primed everything black. Once the minis were built, primed them black, hit them with Zenithal, 45 degrees from the front, give them a little bit more light on the head, and then I hit them with the airbrush with some sepia ink. That gave a nice flesh colour and a more organic look to the armour, which I quite like personally, and I thought it would have quite a good contrast against the rusted metallic look of the carapace, which is what I wanted. So yeah, we're here with some sepia ink. So that was the Daly and Rowney DW range that I used on there. And then I came back with some Rakarth flesh, picked out a couple of details here and there, and then gave a fairly light dry brush with a bit of Rakarth flesh mixed with a little bit of that ink, just to bring out some of the high points. Then we came back in with black, hit all of the carapace, all of the bone parts that we wanted to be metallic at the end, blocked all those colours in. Once we got those blocked in, we then grabbed the Dirty Downs rust and we went to town with that. So I watered it down a little bit, probably like a 1/3 water to 2/3 Dirty Down, and I find for me that gives a nice rust effect. It has the blotchiness that you would expect from real rust. So we've got some quite deep colours, some quite lighter colours where the metal shows through, and that kind of gives a good canvas then to come back in with first some dark gunmetal. And I sponged that on, and then I just selectively picked out a couple of points here and there, the teeth being the predominant one, and the eyes with Vallejo, Game A, Chrome, and that was basically it. I've not done anything else to the carapace. The other areas of interest on the bodies, so anywhere where there was kind of like that ribbed motif that you see on NIDs, I used some Games Workshop Nihilak Oxide, Nihilak is how you pronounce it, their verdigris paint, and I just went in with that, nothing else. That sepia gave it quite a nice base, so it didn't come back super bright, which is not what I wanted. I wanted to stay away from OSL on these ones because, well, I painted a lot of OSL on the last two armies, so this one has just been nice and flat, quite organic looking, I think, with this metallic sheen to it in certain places. So it's not too much. I find this one quite palatable. I think it's a little bit more realistic than some of the stuff that you see on Games Workshop's standard paint schemes. I realise it's not going to fit into their lore, but that's absolutely fine. The yarn is you do with them what you like, and I have myself here, so yeah. Then once that was all dry, I came back in with some of the oil paints. I mixed a little red and blue together to give me like a fleshy purple, and I used that at the parts of the joints where you would get some natural reddening, where the blood would be close to the top of the skin. So that added a little bit of colour variation onto the main body, which worked quite well, I felt. Quite happy with how that's turned out. And also, the only other place I did it was at the side of the mouth where the ligaments come down. I just glazed over the top of those, again using that same oil colour. So it was like a deep purple, like burgundy colour, a little bit of white spirit, really thinned it down, glazed it on there, and called it a day. That's worked really well as well on some of the weapons for the warriors. So they're called lash whips, I think. I've done them on there, and what I did was, as I was painting like the mid part here, as I got to the end parts, I added in a little bit more of the blue just to give it some more interest and variation and give it almost like a look of an organ. So in my head, so obviously if you know about 40k, then Tyranids basically grow their weapons. So the whip, it would make sense to me for it to be some type of either ligament or organ. So I went down that route of leaning into that a little bit more and tried to make it look like it was one of those things, either a ligament or an organ. And since I'd already used that burgundy colour to almost accentuate where you would see natural reddening around the joint parts of the limbs, it seemed like a really sensible way to do it without introducing too many of the colours, but giving it some interest. And that's it. I put a little bit of white in the eyes, and then, like I said, I'd already touched them with chrome, a little bit of white around the sockets, and then I just run some yellow in there just to give a little bit of a pop to the eyes and have something for the viewer's eye to draw towards the head, which hopefully should be naturally lighter because that's where we put the majority of the zenithal shading. Base wise, all I've done is got a couple of bits of slate from the garden, glued those on just to add some consistency. Now anybody using these old gaunts will know that they're not particularly stable, so that has added some much needed weight to the base so they're not falling over all the time. And it's also let me tie everything together a little bit more. I did think about rebasing all of these and pulling them off and doing something a little bit more interesting, but all I've done is I got some Games Workshop Armageddon dust, Armageddon dunes that I had about a third of a pot left over from another project I did. Now I wouldn't normally use this because it's hugely overpriced, as you probably know. I'm more into the Vallejo product line, but waste not, want not. So I put a little bit of slate on each of the bases, put some Armageddon dust dunes, whatever it's called, on there, smashed over some black wash, and now that's where we are right now. We're just, well, it is all dry, and I'm just coming back in with a bit of a dry brush of a dark grey just to make it pop. I don't want anything too bright because, like I say, I want this to be kind of not set in midday. I want to have the majority of the attention up towards the head, bringing the viewer's eye down without too much interest going on the base. This is purely just to have something a little bit more interesting than a little bit of sand on there. And I've also taken the liberty of going ahead and pre-painting some of these. I think it's called Barbed Bracken. Just did this with the airbrush. It's basically 3 colours and then dry brushed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of this on each of the bases of each of the nids. Now, because the nids all look alike, it's going to be quite difficult to tell them apart when they're on the game board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, like I say, a little bit of this foliage on each one to kind of tie it together, give it a little bit more of an interest to the base. It's like coming out of a jungle or something. And what I'm going to do is each one of the individual units is going to have a different coloured leaf on one of the plants, and that's what's going to tell them apart. I didn't want to do anything that separated the bioforms from each other, because that's the thing, that each one of them is just supposed to be a drone controlled by the hive mind. So in my head, it doesn't make sense to have anything unique about individual ones at this point. I may be wrong about that. Do let me know down in the comments if I am talking total nonsense there. I'd be interested. But it seemed like a sensible way to have something unique on each one that would allow me to pick them apart on the game board. Now, once those are on and the bases are rimmed, all I'm going to do with that, I'm certainly not going to show that in the video because it will bore you to death, is I'm going to rim the bases with the airbrush with my usual black, add a little bit of vignette on each of the base, again, to bring the eye into the model and focus it on what I want people to be looking at. and I'll call it done. I think overall it's turned out to be a reasonable project. So that's where we are, and you know what? I've enjoyed it. It's been a really good little palette cleanser that I've been wanting to do for a while. It's been good to get it off of my hobby to-do list, and considering I did the test model for it so long back, it's been cracking to do that. Well then, I think this is the last one, so without further ado, let's have a look what we ended up with and see what you think.